The crimson dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Commander Jake Thornton's boots as he made his final sweep of Sector 7. 3 months into the expedition, and they'd found nothing but rocks and disappointment. His team had already returned to base camp, but Jake had volunteered for one last patrol, anything to avoid another night of recycled air and synthetic rations. That's when he heard it, a sound like broken glass dragging across metal. He rounded a crystalline outcropping and found her collapsed against the rocks, her silvery blue skin glistening with something too luminescent to be blood. She was humanoid but otherworldly, tall and lithe, with features that seemed carved from moonlight itself. Her breathing came in shallow gasps, and a wicked gash ran across her shoulder, exposing tissue that sparkled like crushed diamonds. "Jesus," Jake whispered, his medical training overriding his shock. He approached slowly, hands raised. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her eyes snapped open, brilliant amber orbs with vertical pupils that contracted sharply. She tried to scramble away, but pain made her cry out. The sound pierced something deep in Jake's chest. "Easy, easy," he soothed, reaching for his emergency med kit. "Let me help." She watched him with the wariness of a wounded predator as he cleaned and dressed her wound with synthetic bandages. Her skin felt cool to the touch, electric somehow, sending small pulses up his fingers. When he finished, she touched the bandage experimentally, then looked at him with something approaching curiosity. "I'm Jake," he said, pointing to himself. "Jake." She tilted her head, considering. When she spoke, her voice was melodic, layered with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from a single throat. "Kale, R.A. Kara," he repeated softly. "Beautiful name." Over the following days, Jake returned to the outcropping with supplies he smuggled from base camp: water purification tablets, protein bars, thermal blankets. He told himself he was simply observing a new species, gathering data. But the truth lodged itself deeper with each visit. He was enchanted. Kara proved to be a quick learner. Within a week, she'd picked up enough English to communicate in broken sentences. She was a scout, she explained, separated from her clan during a dust storm. Her people lived in the deep caverns beneath the planet's surface, a civilization humanity had never detected. "You different," she said one evening, her fingers tracing the air near his face without quite touching. "Other Skywalkers, they take. You give." Jake felt his throat tighten. "I just wanted to help." "Why?" The question was genuine, curious. He searched for an answer and found only honesty. "Because everyone deserves kindness. Even strangers from different worlds." Something shifted in her amber eyes. A crack in the armor, a glimpse of vulnerability that made his heart race in ways that had nothing to do with alien biology and everything to do with connection. That night, as he prepared to leave, she caught his hand. Her touch sent shivers cascading through him. "Tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he promised. "Always tomorrow." 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and growing attachment. Jake knew he was violating every protocol in the expedition handbook. He should have reported first contact immediately. Instead, he found himself hiking through crimson valleys at dawn, his pulse quickening as Kara's silhouette emerged from the morning mist. She taught him to read the planet's moods, how the crystalline formations hummed before dust storms, how the bioluminescent fungi predicted underground thermal shifts. In return, he shared stories of Earth, oceans she couldn't imagine, forests that stretched beyond the horizon, cities that glittered like her people's caverns, but reached toward the sky instead of burrowing beneath it. "Your world sounds loud," she observed, sitting beside him on their favorite outcropping, legs dangling over the edge. "It is," Jake admitted. "Chaotic. Beautiful. Terrifying. Everything all at once. Like you," she said, and he turned to find her watching him with an intensity that stole his breath. I'm not. You are? She shifted closer, their shoulders nearly touching. You carry fear and hope together. Duty and desire. You want to stay and go, both at once. Jake felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with physical vulnerability. How can you see that? My people read essence. She struggled for the word. Energy. What you call emotions, we see as colors, patterns. Yours are. She gestured helplessly. Storm and sunrise mixed. He laughed to spite himself. That sounds about right. The silence that followed felt charged, electric. Kaora's hand rested between them, and Jake found himself studying the elegant length of her fingers, the subtle iridescence of her skin. Without thinking, he placed his hand over hers. She didn't pull away. Jake, she whispered, do you feel this? This. Again, the search for words. This pull between us? His heart hammered. Yes. In my culture, when two beings resonate like this, it's called Velshera. Soul binding. It's rare. Sacred. Her amber eyes met his. Especially between different species. It shouldn't be possible. But it is, he said, threading his fingers through hers. It is possible because it's happening. Kaora leaned into him then, her head resting against his shoulder, and Jake wrapped his arm around her. They sat like that as the twin suns set, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, two beings from worlds apart finding something neither had known they were searching for. That night, she led him to a hidden grotto near her camp, a small cave where luminescent crystals grew in spiraling patterns across the walls, bathing everything in soft blue light. The space felt intimate, sacred. I want to show you, she said softly, how my people express affection. She placed her palm against his chest, and warmth bloomed beneath her touch, not burning but soothing, like sunlight through water. Then she pressed her forehead to his, and suddenly he felt her, not just physically but emotionally, a flood of sensation that made him gasp. Joy, curiosity, fear, desire, all of it flowing between them in waves. Kaora, he breathed. Stay, she whispered against his skin. Tonight. Stay with me. He did. Reality crashed back with the harsh buzz of Jake's communicator. He woke tangled with Kaora in the grotto, her skin cool against his warmth, their bodies fitting together like puzzle pieces evolution never intended. For a moment, he let himself exist in that perfect space between sleep and waking where consequences didn't matter. Then the buzzing came again. Shit! He fumbled for the device. Thornton here. Commander, where the hell are you? Captain Rivera's voice crackled with irritation. You missed morning check-in. We've got an orbital supply drop in 2 hours, and you're supposed to supervise the unload. Jake glanced at Kaora, who had awakened and was watching him with those knowing amber eyes. I'm running environmental surveys in Sector 9. Lost track of time. Well, get your ass back to base. And Jake? Stop volunteering for solo patrols. You're making the psych team nervous. The line went dead. Kaora sat up, the movement graceful despite the confined space. In the crystal light, she looked ethereal, otherworldly in ways that made his chest ache. You have to go. Not yet. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. She tasted like starlight, if starlight had flavor, cool and bright and infinite. She melted into him, her fingers tracing patterns on his back that made his nerve endings sing. But when they broke apart, worry clouded her expression. Your people will discover us, she said. What happens then? Jake had been avoiding that question for weeks. Now it lodged itself like a stone in his throat. I don't know. First contact protocols are complicated. Will they hurt my clan? No, he said firmly, though uncertainty gnawed at him. We're explorers, not conquerors. But they'll want to study, To understand, to... He stopped, seeing her flinch. To treat your people like specimens. And us? Her voice went soft. What will they do about us? He wanted to promise her everything would be fine, but lies had no place between them. They'll probably separate us. Ship me back to Earth for psychological evaluation. Maybe court-martial me for breach of protocol. Kilra's hand found his face, turning him to meet her gaze. Then we run. Tonight. I can take you to my people's deep caverns. You could live with us, learn our ways. Kilra, I can't just... But the protest died as he saw the desperate hope in her eyes. You'd do that? Bring a human into your hidden world. For you? She pressed her palm to his heart. I would do anything. The weight of her words settled over him. This wasn't just attraction anymore, wasn't just physical need. Somewhere between alien sunsets and whispered confessions, he'd fallen completely, impossibly in love with her. I need time, he said finally. To think, to plan. Give me 3 days to arrange things at base, to figure out how to do this without bringing disaster down on both our people. She nodded, though fear flickered across her features. 3 days. Then you decide, your world or mine. He kissed her again, trying to pour everything he couldn't say into the gesture. When he finally pulled away, she clung to him for one more moment. Whatever you choose, she whispered. Know that you've already changed my world, Jake Thornton. He left her there in the crystal grotto, his heart feeling like it might tear itself apart. The next 2 days were agony. Jake went through the motions at base camp, supervising supply drops and filing fabricated survey reports while his mind remained in that luminescent cave with Kilra. At night, he lay awake calculating impossible odds. The likelihood of successful desertion, the ramifications of revealing an entire hidden civilization, the probability that what he felt was real and not some psychological break brought on by isolation. Every calculation pointed toward disaster. Every feeling screamed the opposite. On the third evening, he hiked to their meeting place under the pretense of another solo patrol. His pack carried everything he owned, not much for a life, but enough to make a choice. The twin moons were rising, casting double shadows across the crimson landscape, when he found her waiting. She'd changed. Instead of her usual practical attire, she wore something ceremonial, flowing fabric that seemed woven from starlight itself, adorned with crystals that chimed softly as she moved. Her hair, usually bound back, cascaded down her shoulders in silver waves. You're beautiful, he breathed. And you're troubled. She approached, reading him with that uncanny perception. You haven't decided. I've decided, he said, dropping his pack. I just don't know if it's the right decision or the craziest thing I've ever done. A smile played at her lips. With us, perhaps those are the same thing. They walked to the outcropping where they'd first sat together, the planet spreading out beneath them in shades of crimson and violet. Jake's hands trembled as he tried to form words adequate to the moment. But Kilra spoke first. In my culture, she began, her voice carrying that melodic quality that always made his heart skip. When two souls resonate, when Velshera occurs, there's a bonding ritual. It's not just joining, it's merging. Two beings choosing to walk as one through all worlds, all times. She turned to face him fully, and in her eyes, he saw eternity reflected. Jake Thornton, you crashed into my world when I was broken. You could have left me to die, reported me to your people, treated me as nothing more than alien curiosity. Instead, you saw me. You chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier. You shared your warmth when I had only known cold stone. She took his hands, and warmth pulsed between them, that electric connection that defied biology and logic. I want to belong to your world, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion shimmering around her like an aura. Not as conqueror or visitor, but as partner. as equal as. She drew a shaking breath. Will you marry me, human? Will you let me walk beside you through whatever comes next? The world stopped. Jake's mind went blank, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of what she was offering. Not just love, not just partnership, but true union, a merging of lives, cultures, possibly entire civilizations. Everything he'd been raised to believe about duty, protocol, and the careful separation of explorer and explored shattered in that moment. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Kaelra's expression flickered, hope, fear, uncertainty playing across her features in rapid succession. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Jake? She whispered. Say something. But he couldn't. Because he just realized that this moment, this impossible, beautiful, terrifying moment, would change everything. His answer wouldn't just affect them. It would alter the fate of two civilizations, bridge a gap that had existed since before humans learned to look at the stars and wonder what looked back. The silence stretched, and in that pause, he realized the weight of destiny itself hung in the balance. Jake's silence continued for what felt like centuries. Kaelra's hands trembled in his, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with emotion, fear, hope, and something deeper he couldn't name. Finally, he found his voice. When I left Earth, he said slowly, I thought I was coming here to discover new worlds. New rocks, new elements, maybe new microbes if we were lucky. He laughed shakily. Never in my wildest imagination did I think I'd discover you. Tears, if that's what they were, glimmered in Kaelra's eyes, catching the moonlight like liquid crystal. You're asking me to choose between everything I've ever known and everything I never knew I needed. Between duty and love. Between my world and yours. He squeezed her hands tighter. But here's the thing, Kaelra, that's a false choice. Because you're not asking me to abandon one world for another. He pulled her close, their foreheads touching in that intimate gesture of her people. You're asking me to help build a bridge. To be part of something unprecedented, the first human to truly connect with an alien species, not as researcher and subject, but as partners. As equals. As, he smiled through his own tears. As husband and wife. Jake. Yes, he said firmly, the word resonating through them both. Yes, I'll marry you. By whatever ceremony your people use, whatever rituals mine require, whatever new traditions we have to invent together, yes. Kaelra's joy exploded outward in waves of light, her skin glowing so brightly that Jake had to shield his eyes. Then she was kissing him, urgent and desperate, months of restrained longing finally unleashed. They tumbled onto the smooth stone, hands exploring, barriers falling away. Mine, she murmured against his skin, her touch sending electric shivers through him. My human. My Jake. Yours, he agreed, pulling her closer. Always yours. Later, wrapped together under the alien stars, Jake's communicator buzzed again. This time, he didn't ignore it. Captain Rivera, he said calmly. I need to report first contact with an intelligent alien species. And I'm requesting permission to establish formal diplomatic relations. The stunned silence on the other end was almost comical. Additionally, Jake continued, glancing at Kaelra with a smile, I'm going to need you to forward the regulations on interspecies marriage. I have a feeling we're about to make history. 3 months later, Jake stood in a cavern deep beneath Kepler 442b's surface, surrounded by Kaelra's people, dozens of luminescent beings who had emerged from hiding to witness something unprecedented. Behind him, Captain Rivera and a carefully selected human delegation stood in equal wonder. Kaelra appeared in traditional bonding robes, escorted by her clan elders. When she reached Jake, she placed her hand over his heart, now a familiar gesture, but one that still sent warmth flooding through him. The ceremony blended customs from both worlds. They exchanged vows in English and her musical language. They shared water from Earth and crystal essence from Kepler 442b. And when the Elder finally declared them bonded, the cavern erupted in celebration, human applause mixing with the harmonic singing of Kaelra's people. "We did it," Kaelra whispered as they held each other. "We bridged two worlds." "No," Jake corrected, kissing her softly. "We created a new one." Outside, in the harsh crimson deserts above, their two civilizations were already beginning the careful dance of first contact, sharing technology, culture, understanding. There would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings and conflicts inevitable when two species attempted to coexist. But in that moment, wrapped in his wife's arms, Jake knew they'd already overcome the hardest part. They'd chosen love over fear, hope over protocol, possibility over the safety of separation. She had asked him to marry her, and his speechless moment had transformed into something neither world could have predicted. A future written in starlight and stone, human and alien, forever intertwined. Their story was just beginning. And in the annals of human history, when scholars wrote about the first true connection between Earth and the stars, they would point to this moment, not when ships arrived or treaties were signed, but when a wounded alien woman asked a human man a simple question. "Will you marry me?" And he, after a pause that held infinity itself, answered, "Yes."